Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Blue Dream, my personal SSF fever dream, because I will never make this build again, that's for sure. Let's dive in. In SSF, you must play with the cards you're dealt. There's no trading or cheating, it's all just you. Let me show you some of these cards that I've been dealt this time. Those are some interesting items, which got me thinking, what elemental lightning or cold skill would work with Rakiata's dance? I felt lightning strike was more of a one-handed weapon skill. I already played frostblades some time ago, elemental hit didn't seem amazing, and then my interest was caught by smite. And to stay in character, I looked at the Paladin. Smite Paladin makes sense, right? And it turns out, fortunately, that the Paladin Ascendancy has some pretty busted nodes all in all. I don't consider myself someone who is even decent at creating builds. I try every league, but you've seen very few videos of those attempts. Let me assure you there's a reason for that. This time, however, I managed to create something that does what I like best, and that's blasting maps. It is a great, fun and quite straightforward build, but I think it's interesting to get into all the aspects of it, share my thoughts, my reasoning, and most of all, allow you the opportunity to share your views on it in the comment section. I'm not trying to sell you on this build as I play SSF, there's very little point in all of that, but perhaps you are inspired by this video, or you're finding some interesting tech, or you've played this build yourself and you want to share some tips. After the video goes live, take a look at the comment section. I will pin a post with improvements and good comments from all of you. Let's start with a build overview. This build uses Smite of Divine Judgment, a big-ass two-handed sword. It's fast, it has good clear speed, it's reasonably tanky as long as you keep hitting enemies because of the leech, but most of all it's fun, at least I think so. It is a mapping character. I don't use this guy for bossing, as single target damage isn't great, and sustain isn't great either on bosses. It is a one-button build, it has auto-targeting, it's fast, zoomy, resistant to almost every ailment, including bleed and corrupted blood. It has some evasion, some armor, full spell suppression, but most of all, it's not SSF-ifiable under normal circumstances. I was lucky to find the items that I did and managed to turn it into something cool, the Smite Paladin. When you enter a map, to mitigate as much damage in the first few seconds as possible, you should manually hit your flasks, so they're active. I activate Blood Rage, kill a few packs, and then I'm off to the races. It's quite smooth really, the lightning strikes auto-target enemies and you one-shot pretty much anything, including tier 17 monsters. I'm not even going to attempt the tier 17 bosses on this guy. It's completely pointless, but running the maps themselves is completely fine and not too bad, I feel. Tier 16s are comfortable and league mechanic with a bunch of monsters to be killed, such as Legion, Breach or Ritual, all work great. For skills, the main damage skill is Smite of Divine Judgment, the transfigured version of Smite. It has less added damage percentage bonus, it doesn't have the flat lightning damage aura of Smite, and it doesn't have shock chance, but instead of striking at just one target, it strikes at 3 targets. In short, it's better for clear, where I think regular Smite is better at single target damage. You can get additional strikes as an Eldritch Implicit on your gloves from this Searing Exarch. And of course you are free to keep a regular Smite like I do in your inventory and sometimes swap out the gem. For me to do that though, that's pretty rare, as once again I'm not bossing on this character. I'm supporting Smite with Inspiration to reduce the cost and increase the crit chance, Trinity support, which works thanks to our weapon, elemental damage with attacks, pretty straightforward, multi-strike, which greatly increases attack speed, making the skill feel a lot better to play, but also auto-targets the second and third strike, assuming you hold down the Smite button, and volatility, as the bulk of the damage is lightning. Also, POB said this was a good choice, so I took it. I'm running in total 5 auras. Determination, this is from the Ascendancy. An automated molten shell linked to life tap, which is also a foul molten shell that I can press when I'm surrounded by enemies. That sometimes saves me. And then Blood and Sand, the Blood Stance, Precision and Purity of Elements, supported by a level 3 Enlighten. I have a Mark on Hit Assassin's Mark for extra crit, supported by Life Tap, so it doesn't cost mana. For movement, I have Leap Slam, faster attacks, also linked to Life Tap. And I run a level 1 Frostblink and a 2120 Blood Rage for frenzy charges and attack speed. Finally, I have a Cast on Death portal setup, which allows me to get back into the action quickly should I die. My gear is quite extraordinary for SSF, starting with the weapon of course, the Rakiata's Dance. Dropping this made me think about the build in the first place. This weapon has decent flat elemental damage on it, cold and lightning, but next to that an interesting modifier, stating it treats enemy resistances as inverted. For example, if an enemy boss has 40% elemental resistance, your hits treat that as minus 40 elemental resistance. And you can play around with this quite a bit. For example, the unique helmet, the Eye of Malice, which increases enemy cold and fire resistance by 50%, gets applied first, and then the whole thing is treated as inverted. Another fun one, Eldritch Altars. You can give Eldritch monsters an additional 180% elemental resistances, which again gets inverted. I'm not exactly sure if there is a cap for this negative elemental resistance, but it's for sure noticeable when you hit it. And specifically here, doing the blue altars from the Eater of World is a good idea, as you are primarily dealing cold and lightning damage. Then the helmet, this is from Heist, the Replica Abysses. It's a good amount of flat damage, a massive crit multiplier, but it also increases elemental damage taken. It makes you a lot squishier for sure. The armor is quite basic. I can probably improve on this, but I like the armor and evasion on it so far. The non-curse aura effect also adds up quite a bit. I have a lot of that all around the build, around 60% or so, making my Purity of Elements, for example, give 61% elemental resistances. Gloves I feel need to be rare ones because you need the Eldritch implicit. For the rest it's basic with some resistances on it. The Stygian Vise, the same thing, I really need Chaos resistance, and in here there is a gem with Corrupted Blood immunity on it. The boots from Betrayal have good movement speed, a chance to get onslaught on kill, which is great, and again just some resistances. Then the jewelry, which is fully unique. The Death Rush is a rare random unique drop, and besides some Chaos res, which I sorely need, it provides Adrenaline for 100% increased damage, 25% attack cast and movement speed, and 10% physical damage reduction. This is one of my favorite items for mapping. My other ring is the Taming, which you can get by vendoring the 3 Barracks rings or via divination cards. It's got decent resistances, but most of all 38% increased elemental damage per ailment. This goes up to 40%, you can even use catalysts on this thing. We are applying at least shock and chill, but we have some flat fire damage as well, so we also ignite. That is a 114% increased elemental damage. And then the Yoke of Suffering amulet, which drops from the boss in tier 17 map Fortress, synergizes with this because it makes enemies take increased damage, which is a damage multiplier for each ailment. Not just elemental ailments, but any ailment. Again, I am for sure applying Shock, Chill and Ignite, and that's mostly it, but you can scale this multiplier further by adding a source of bleed or poison. The anointment is whatever, to be honest. I should probably get something better at this point. This is a cheap one though, it works well. AoE is quite nice for clear speed. Finally, my flasks are all magic utility because of my Ascendancy, which provides 40% increased flask effect. My sustain comes from Leech, so there's no need for a life flask. At least I think so. This is definitely debatable, but for blasting maps I'm usually fine. Looking at the Ascendancies, I went for Paladin, mostly because it fits the theme of Smite and the big ass sword. At least I think so, once again. There's plenty of synergy as well though. Light of Divinity increases elemental damage taken of enemies, which is clearly a good idea. Elemental Valiance gives a chance to summon elemental relics, and these are the 3 little guys you see in the footage. They're up all the time and provide the 3 elemental damage buffs, meaning Anger, Wrath and Hatred. And these are active for basically the whole map. I have these 3 auras available at any time almost. It's level 20 auras by the way. If you add Huck to this with a haste aura and his own battle shout, you're in for an amazing time. For the third Ascendancy, I went with a level 30 Determination. You can also forgo armor and be completely evasion based here and go with a Grace aura. Finally, I think you have a choice between Anointed Champion, which would be great for sustain, and Field Medicine, which doesn't fit the Paladin archetype at all, but is incredibly strong nevertheless. 40% increased effect of magic utility flasks, that's pretty crazy. This may even stack with a Mage Blood, but I don't have one in SSF yet. I'm running a Quartz, Jade, Granite, Quicksilver and Diamond flask, which are all buffed by 40%. It's very good actually. All the minor Ascendancy nodes gives life regen and aura effect. Let's take a look at the passive tree now. Again, this is just what I came up with after some POB tinkering. I am taking mana flows because I need the mana pretty much, and the intelligence, which is hard to come by with so many uniques equipped. It's also why I'm taking the specific mana mastery, which gives mana, aura effect and mana reservation efficiency. Going to the left first, we're picking up an Endurance and Frenzy charge, plus you can see here why the build is named the Blue Dream. This is a random drop, I think it's pretty rare, I've never seen this jewel in my life. And it fits the build perfectly, with extra chaos damage and elemental resistances adding to a power charge on kill. Pathing towards Cloth and Chain provides elemental resistance and the chance for that power charge on kill thanks to the Blue Dream. As I have 5 Endurance and Frenzy charges, I'm scaling them with the charge nodes here, plus the mastery of 3% damage per charge. I have 13 charges in total, the power charges included, so 39% damage for 1 point is pretty good. I'm scaling some crit, hence I take the Blade of Cunning, plus the mastery that lets enemy block less attacks. That's apparently a good node according to Palstron. I trust the guy, so I'm taking it as well. I went with Steadfast and the Fortify mastery, providing me 23 Fortify on melee hit, that's 23% less damage taken. I'm also getting Rage, which works quite well, and during maps I have around 20 to 25 Rage easily all the time. Intimidating nearby enemies increases their damage taken as well. All the way to the left, I have another interesting find, the Immutable Force. After throwing some divines at it, I decided to run with it instead of taking Unwavering Stance. And I think it works fine, honestly. Sure, you give up a jewel socket, but I'm saving quite some points on the tree, plus I get to keep my evasion. I also take the Armor Mastery, 30% reduced damage from crits, in the hopes of avoiding the one-shots. Moving to the right side of the tree, I'm taking some more reservation to fit in all the auras. Life, of course, take it up wherever you can. Some suppression, I'm spell suppressed capped with my quartz flask up. I want the Leech Mastery for instant leech, so I decided to take it here for mana leech. I have some life leech tattoos on strength nodes a bit to the left. The Primeval Force is quite nice, that's a lot of elemental damage and ailment effects. I have a bunch of elemental effects and sometimes my crits are huge with lightning damage. I've seen shocks on enemies of 50%, which is a massive damage multiplier. I'm taking more sword nodes, the Fatal Blade plus the Crit Mastery. I think 120% crit chance for some crit multi is a good trade. My last jewel slot is filled with yet another unique jewel, this time the Intuitive Leap, allowing you to freely allocate points in its radius without having to path there. This is another somewhat rare drop, although I find it almost every league, so it's not that rare. The nodes I'm leaping to are the Frenzy Charge, the Heartseeker for crit multi, Aspect of the Lynx and Acuity. They're all great nodes for my build. As I am effectively stun immune due to the Immutable Force and ailment immune due to Purity of Elements, I went with the physical damage reduction of Lunaris and Aberrath because I like running Searing Exarch and I don't like to be burned to the ground. I need to make a huge disclaimer here, because my path of building skills are not great. If I'm inflating the damage or defenses, I can assure you it's not intentional. Please let me know in the comments and I will address it, but let me try to be as transparent as possible. For configuration, I will kill all the bandits. I do use 3 power charges from the unique jewel and from the Assassin's Mark quality. I have 5 Frenzy and Endurance charges up all the time during maps. 5 Inspiration is there from the support gem, I think that is fair to count, but let me know otherwise. I have Life Tap, Onslaught from the boots, Adrenaline from the Death Rush. I'm calculating 25 Rage because I'm hitting enemies all the time and I have killed recently. I am stating that the enemy is ignited, chilled and shocked without additional shock effect. I am delivering huge shocks though, so I'm not sure what it is on average. I'm not filling anything else in though. I think the default is 15%. It's definitely more than the default, which is that 15%, but it's fine. The enemy is also intimidated from the mastery. I'm in blood stance, I'm enabling all the 3 elemental auras as these minions are up all the time, and the lowest resonance is set to 50, which is the maximum, but you can see in the footage those bars are filled all the time of the Trinity support. I didn't touch any of the other configurations. In the skill section, both Val Molten Shell and regular Molten Shell are disabled, although they're up quite a lot of the time. In items, I've enabled the flasks because they're always ticking during maps. And then when looking at the actual statistics of the character, when selecting the Smite skill, you have 2 components and both should be added because you hit with the area and you hit with the attack itself. The melee hit does 4.4 million damage and the area hit does 5 million damage for a total of 9.5 million damage. You can tell the effective hit pool isn't great, and that's even after I've killed some enemies. At the very start of the map I have no charges, no flasks, no buffs, and you're easily getting one shot. After killing 2 packs, however, you are fully operational with still only 21,000 effective health. Chaos damage hurts a lot here. You can take a look at the rest of the stats. I will share the path of building as well, of course, in the description. I've also put a regex in the video description that I'm using. I'm avoiding elemental reflect, physical is fine by the way, no minus max resistance and no cannot leech because we need to leech. You can take less recovery and cannot regen on this build, although sometimes you will be out of mana as a result, but a simple auto attack fills you up. I'm avoiding reduced aura effect as our auras provide so many benefits, and for the same reason I don't want monsters to steal charges because without those the build feels a lot worse to play. I hope you have a good time watching this episode. It's basically my first build for Path of Exile 1. Let me know what you think. Also, let me know if you have any suggestions or if I made any errors, which is probably what happens sometime. Subscribe and like for more PoE SSF content. Thanks for watching and making it to the end. Love you all. See you soon. Bye bye.